Good news can often get overlooked or buried by the negative in our everyday lives. So let's change that. I'm Adrianna.
And I'm Wyatt.
We're just two ordinary people without any special qualifications or anything, trying to navigate life. We invite you to join us as we share wholesome stories, news articles of hope, and ideas about how we can all make the world just a little bit brighter. We are uplifting positive stories. Welcome back to another episode of Uplifting Positive Stories. Thanks for joining us, everybody.
Glad to be here, and hopefully everyone is staying warm as it gets colder and colder in January up here in the Great White North.
Oh, gosh. Awesome. Well, I'm excited for today's episode. Today is all about going above and beyond. So it's a lot of great stories of people just taking that extra effort to go above and beyond and do something really, really cool for people. So yeah, we're just going to dive right into these stories.
All right, we're just doing it.
Yeah, I got some good ones lined up. I'm excited to share them. Our first one comes from the subreddit Ask Reddit, and it is titled, "What is the most wholesome thing you have seen?" The story says, "My story may not seem wholesome to y'all, but it is. Spoiler alert, it is."
Wait. You didn't give the alert first?
Well, they said that it might not seem wholesome, but it 100% is. Anyways, but my mom is a teacher at a school where the students are delinquents or their grades aren't all that great, or their home lives aren't great either, and it affects them at school. And she has helped them through so much. When they didn't want to go to prom because they didn't have clothes or someone to do hair and makeup, she and I were there to help them. We got together and took the boys to Goodwill and JCPenney to help them pick out suits, and then she paid for them out of pocket, I might add. Then, on a separate day, we took the girls to go dress shopping and helped them find the perfect dress and shoes and accessories to match out of the dresses that were donated to my high school through the years. Then, on the Friday before prom, we had a spa day for all of the juniors and seniors, only about 10 or 11 students. I gave them facials, groomed their eyebrows, yes, even the boys. I cut their hair, and we listened to my Spotify, even listening to the songs that probably shouldn't be played at school. Oh. But the students and my mom didn't mind, so we kept them on. Then, on prom day, we all met up at the school, and the students got all dressed up. My mom did the girls' makeup, and I did their hair, and then my aunt came and took pictures. It was just overall an awesome experience to spend with those kids. After, my mom told me that the kids said they had a better time getting pampered and ready than they actually did at prom. My mom is a saint, bless her heart. She loves her students like they are her own kids. I even love her kids. They are great and deserve all the best things in life.
Here's hoping that statement about them enjoying the prep being more than prom is more of a reflection of how great the prep was and less about the prom being kind of a letdown, you know? Because prom can be a letdown sometimes, you know, it can be a little overhyped, but it also be a lot of fun. It kind of depends on the crew you're with.
But I think it's so true, though, that a lot of times it is that excitement of getting all pampered and getting all dressed up and maybe going to dinner or taking pictures and stuff like that. That is part, like, I know for me, that was some of the most fun that I had at prom, which prom was fun too, but it was just really fun to be with our friends and get all prepped and ready to go and be excited for the big prom night. I don't know. I think it's that anticipation that makes it more fun.
Oh, yeah.
So I think that's so cool that they got to experience that, because they probably would not have been able to experience anything like that had they not done that for them. Because that's a lot of money. I remember I paid for my stuff all out of pocket for like doing my hair and stuff and getting my dress. And it was expensive. It was very expensive to do those things. So the fact that this teacher, this mom, went ahead and bought all the guys suits and stuff from JCPenney and Goodwill from her own pocket. That's awesome. That's so amazing. I mean, to go above and beyond. She's just a teacher. She 100% did not need to do that, you know, but she wanted to make their year, because it's such a big, like, milestone moment in your high school experience. Everyone talks about prom, you know? And so giving them that milestone that they get to experience and they'll always look back on fondly is such a cool thing.
Plus, it's really, I mean, you don't have to go to prom. Like, if you're not something that's not your thing, you don't have to go. Like, we're not saying that, but
100%
if your barrier to not going is just finances and stuff, that's really hard to get by. Like,
it's really
wishing
hard.
that you could have gone, but you just couldn't because of the financial barrier. That's tough, especially when you're a kid growing up. It's like really out of your control then.
Right.
I mean, it's out of your control generally as well. So it's just great to see a teacher step up like that and to help
that.
those that would have wanted to go that couldn't have otherwise.
100%.
Again, it's different if they just didn't want to go.
100%.
It's not for everybody.
That is true. At my school, there was a similar experience where there was a theater director that worked at our school, and she was also the tech assistant at our school as well. And so when kids did not have stuff to wear to the school dances, and this was for all the school dances, not just for prom, when she would find out about that, she would let them go through the entire costume collection, because they had some prom-like dresses in the costumes of all different sizes for the shows, because we'd put on lots of production like Footloose and stuff like that, and so there was a lot of those kind of dresses. And so there were times where people wore suits and wore dresses that were from the costume department because they looked like a prom dress. It was a prom dress, or it was a suit. And that was just such a cool thing. I mean, because they wouldn't have been able to afford one otherwise, or money was tight, and so they got to find a cool dress that fit their style and didn't have to pay for it. It was so cool. That's nice. I know a lot of schools are doing that now too, where they'll have like discount, like, because a lot of times people wear a dress and then they never wear it again. So like people can donate them, and then they'll have like a selection of beautiful prom dresses or suits that people wore once for a dance, and now people that come up through the grades can like borrow it or whatever. So that's so cool when people do stuff like that, going above and beyond. Very, very cool. All right. Our next story comes from the subreddit Faith and Humanity. It's been a while, I feel like, since we've gone to the subreddit. There's some really cool stories on this one. This story says titled, TSA isn't all shouting about laptops and taking shoes off.
Yes, it is. Let's
be real.
Let me stop you right there. Unnamed Redditor. It is. It 100% is.
No,
just kidding.
No, it's not.
Sometimes it is.
That's true. It can be really stressful.
Depends on how difficult the people going through TSA are, or I mean, more importantly, is the technology working? Last time we went,
yes.
They were, when we were trying to fly out of MSP, it was like they only had the one line going. Then they opened the second line, yay, hooray! And the second line moves over, immediately breaks down with our stuff inside the machine. Like, oh, great! They could definitely tell the workers were
so frustrated. Yeah, they were definitely done.
And no one was yelling, but they were technology. I could imagine tech stuff hampering that as well. Anyways,
it's really busy, like there's been times where we've been at the airport and it's just insane through TSA, and you can just tell, like, they're like, do not mess this up, do not screw up going through the scanner, make sure your laptop is out, like, I'm not telling you again. So sometimes stress happens.
It kind of gives teacher monitoring in classroom to children vibes a little bit, like, make sure you're have this ready, and then got to keep it moving, kind of keep moving.
Exactly. But here's a great example of somebody going the extra mile. All right, here we go.
I see what you did there.
Thanks. A few weeks ago, I was flying out of my local, pretty small airport when I got in line behind a woman who didn't speak English and, by the looks of it, didn't travel by plane often. No one in the airport spoke her language, so she was becoming increasingly anxious and frantic with every interaction. As she was loading her stuff up on the TSA X-ray belt, the agent started giving her the spiel. Laptop, liquids, shoes, etc. And it was clear that the woman didn't understand. She started to panic and looked like she was going to have an anxiety attack. When the TSA agent stopped what she was doing and started gesturing to take deep breaths. They took a few deep breaths together, and afterwards the woman was able to make it through the scanner just fine. This happened almost a month ago, and I still look back at it and smile. I love knowing that the TSA agent saw a fellow human struggling and offered kindness rather than piling onto her anxiety. Very pure. Simple thing here, but I think it's such a great example, because sometimes when you're working and it's stressful and people are not, like, if you're in customer service, people aren't listening, or they're not doing what they're supposed to do to, like, get through the line or whatever it is. It can be really frustrating, and it can be really stressful, and you're like, I need to get this job needs to execute correctly for the thing to keep going. You need to get through the line. You need to go through TSA. You can't hold people up because they're going to get crabby at me then. It can get really stressful. So the fact that this worker took that extra beat to be like, okay, this person is clearly going through anxiety right now because it's an anxious situation. I think most TSA agents recognize that. Having somebody like acting like a drill sergeant being like, take your shoes off, do this, like, it can feel very stressful. And sometimes also, a side note, but it's funny how every airport is so different, and the technology keeps changing, and so they're like, don't take your shoes off. What are you doing? And you're like, I've had to take my shoes off for years. What do you mean I'm supposed to leave them on? I was just trying to think ahead, like, so it can be really anxiety inducing for people that even have flown a lot. So imagine for people that haven't flown before or don't know what you're supposed to do, and especially in this situation doesn't speak the language, how stressful that could be. And I mean, I even remember we were in Mexico, in the airport in Mexico. Like I said in the last episode, I'm trying to learn Spanish because if I go back to Mexico, I would like to understand more. Because last time I knew a little bit, un poquito.
You got enough to survive and get out of a lost situation,
Yeah, but it would be a bit less stressful going through the airport, being able to actually fully understand the signs and stuff. And so, and like the intercom when it would go off in Spanish, I was like, I don't know what they're saying fully. So yeah, it can be really stressful. So I think being able to recognize when you're working somewhere, someone is feeling stressed or whatever is going on, you don't know what's going on mentally with them, giving them that little relief from that and like taking a moment. And yes, it might be inconvenient and you're like, I just want to get people through this line, but putting the human first instead of the job for a moment. It's hard to do, but I think it's really, really cool when people do that.
Now, I imagine they see that happen a decent amount of times at airports, but however, in the story, they did make a point that it's a small airport.
Yes.
So it's actually kind of surprising that the TSA worker was able to identify that problem and approach that problem that way. I'm saying that like, normally at a bigger, busier airport, like an international airport, I imagine TSA might see that more often or have that kind of encounter more frequently than say at a small airport. But since it's a small airport, I don't know that it's very possible. They've never had interaction like that before. Right. So them just be able to have that a reaction or approach to that response. That's the word I was looking for.
Yeah, I get you.
To that situation is admirable.
Yeah. Really cool. Someone had also commented being like, hey, you can actually fill out a thing on like the TSA website mentioning that interaction if you happen to know like what time and what terminal you're in and stuff. And they can actually sometimes get like a kudos and a promotion from it potentially and like a raise. So like that kind of thing too. If you notice somebody that is going above and beyond in their job, maybe make that mention because that could actually really affect their job in some way, in a positive way. If
we
you
do
notice.
On our Disney cruises. Yeah, with our servers when they're amazing.
Speaking of Disney, this really goes off into a story that I experienced.
Shout out to Adrian from the Disney Magic. Disney Magic.
When we were in Disney World this past 2 months ago,
a couple months ago.
Yeah, time flies. We were on this roller coaster called Tower of Terror, and there is a guy who works there. And so, for people that don't know, the Tower of Terror is a elevator ride that's it's a drop ride, like
Twilight Zone themed.
Twilight Zone themed, so it's kind of spooky vibes. And there is a guy that works on this ride who has been working there since that ride opened, which it's been decades now that this ride has been functioning, I'm pretty sure. And every time that he's working, he gets into this spooky character and goes above and beyond when he's giving the spiel about how to put on the buckle and like where to file in to get into your seat for the ride. And he's like the only worker I've ever seen do that. Because like the other workers are usually just, okay, do this, do this, do this. All right, go in.
Makes his face really small, and he speaks in a tone of voice that's kind of spooky and creepy, but also very friendly still. Yeah. But almost like it's so friendly, it's a little creepy kind of way. Hey, welcome to the Tower of Terror. I can't do it at all.
He gets very into character.
I can't do the face and the voice. I don't know how it's like, this is the face, kind of. The eyes are mostly squinted. And then, I don't know.
He does this, like, creepy smile.
If you heard it, you'd be like, you would know forever after that point on.
Yeah. And so I found out that, like, he's, like, Disney legend because he's worked there for so long and because he gets so into character and that people just love when he's working. And again, none of the other workers are doing this. So obviously it's not the expectation, but he knows clearly that it makes the ride that much more magical to people that go on it. Cause it's like all in theme. Even the worker is in theme. Like it feels like you're going into this spooky elevator, it amplifies the experience for the people. And so clearly he knows that. And so he does it because of that. He goes above and beyond to make that experience that much cooler for people. And so that just struck me because doing the things he does with his face and his voice, I'm like, that would be hard to do for a full shift every single day.
Yeah.
By choice, you know?
And
like,
why? It's very frequently.
Yeah, right. Every, like, what, 2 minutes he's having to do this for a ride for a whole group of people. And so that just wowed me. And so just, I don't know. But it's just so cool when you do see people that are taking that extra mile to do something like that for people when they clearly don't have to for their job. I think it's really cool when we give people kudos that do that.
Yeah.
Because they should know how much you appreciate and recognize that they're doing that. Because it'll help them to keep going and keep doing those things. Because sometimes it can get really hard. It's like, well, is anyone even appreciating this extra effort I'm putting in? And so, yeah, if you notice a worker that's going above and beyond in their job doing stuff like that, maybe give them a little kudos.
Shout out to that guy. I don't know his name.
I wish I could remember his name, but yeah he was great.
Either.
Anyways, on to the next story. A lot of teacher stories that I've been finding lately. There's just so many wholesome teachers out there. Here we go. Here's another one.
Well, they have to be able to keep doing the underappreciated, underpaid position of being a teacher. You know, you kind of have to have that personality about you.
True.
You're not in it for the money. Let's tell you that.
True. All right. This comes from the subreddit Ask Reddit, and the question was, what is the most wholesome thing you have seen? Story says, I had a teacher in high school who would absolutely go above and beyond for students who were clearly struggling at home. I was one of these students, and I started working very young to help my single mother. He used to come into my job and order food to go and then tip well. He'd even convinced the staff to have after-school teacher events there just to make sure that I was making the tips that I needed. I found out years later he didn't care for the food as much as some of the other local sports bars, but he continued coming because he knew that I needed it. A friend who was silently struggling more than the rest of us would go help him with yard work on Saturday mornings for some extra cash. He also would secretly add funds to lunch accounts if he noticed students not eating. Really, the list goes on and on. He made such a large impact on my life from just being kind. He never came across as creepy or overboard, but just exceptionally welcoming and happy to see us doing well. One time, he probably actually saved my life, but that's a story for another time.
What's that story?
I know. I'm like, where is this story?
Message that.
I need to
message
know.
that Redditor and ask him what is that story, or read through the comments.
The story is from 5 years ago.
Oh, well, there's gotta be some comments in there. I'm giving you some homework right now because that sounds. I need to know. I need to know.
Right? No kidding.
Anyways, the teacher sounds awesome. Anyways,
yeah, just a really cool story. Going above. And what I liked about this story is it's not even like he was doing anything super outside the ordinary. He was just frequenting their place of work and getting food. Little
tiny, easily actionable steps.
Right. And by doing that, it gave them more tips, which is helpful to them then. But like it benefited both of them because he got food and then but by doing that small step, it made a huge impact.
Not his favorite food.
Wasn't his favorite food. But
that's what made it more of a generous act, you know?
Exactly.
Because you don't want to, if you're paying for food, you want it to be good.
That's true.
So
that's true.
Knowingly buy food that is not to
your favorite
level of quality is a sheer act of care.
True. But I also thought that thing too about adding into the lunch money accounts and then also having that student be able to rake up the leaves for cash and stuff like that. Those are ways that you can help people out and stuff. Like I know in Minnesota there's a lot of people that are going around asking they can shovel out your driveway for cash and stuff like that, and by little things like that and be like, sure, like go for it, and then maybe tipping them a little extra. Like those are things that like can be mutually beneficial to both, but are little ways to make go above and beyond.
Like a recent wholesome story on our end was when we had a couple little kids that could not have been older than 10. They had to be like 9.
They were really young.
Knocking on the door and in the dead of winter at night, open the door and they're just kind of like, it snowed like the day before or something, and they're like, can we shovel for you? And that's all they said, and I was like, sure. Why? Like, oh. Could you pay us for it? I was like,
yeah,
sure, yeah. How much do you want? And they're like, $10. And they also added, it was like they wanted to have money for be able to buy Christmas presents.
For their family.
For their family and stuff. I'm like,
so cute.
I'm like, yeah, sure. And so they started shoveling just the front walkway. They didn't do anything crazy. And then I grabbed them the 20 and gave them the 20. Yeah. And then they're like, whoa, it's just $20. As they're like going down the street or whatever.
It was just so cute.
Just the way they're like, oh, can we shovel your? They're not salesmen yet. That was pretty funny. I was like, can we shovel your walkway? I'm like, yeah. why? Or like, what do you want? Like, this is where you tell me what you want for it.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, well, if you could pay us, that'd be great.
It
like,
was
yeah,
so,
sure, I'll pay.
so cute. Oh my gosh. Yeah, they were adorable. Here we go. Next story comes from subreddit Wholesome Stories, and it is titled Customer Becomes Friend. Here we go. I work at a fast food restaurant, and usually most people are rude. However, there is this wonderful lady that comes through that had given me hope and humanity. It started when she became a regular in the drive-thru. I started to recognize her, so I'd give her a discount and ask how she was. Then she started to give me tips whenever she came through, and whenever I was doing financially okay, I'd pay for her order or get her a gift card for the restaurant. Honestly, her tips helped me through hard times, even though I felt guilty taking them. When I told her that, she made sure to set me straight and let me know that she was okay financially, and she said she could tell that I had a good heart. I almost cried because it was such a nice thing to hear. She also baked me cookies once, and I'm planning on making her a painting for Christmas. I'm not the best painter, but she said she wanted something I made to remember me by, and I'm more than willing to give her that. Her visits here lift my spirits, and she's been a good friend that has offered me encouragement about college when I get stressed. We've started to say I love you to each other when she leaves, and it fills my heart with joy. It's cheesy, but I'm glad I met such a kind person, and I hope that I can show her that all of her acts of kindness have helped me so much. Yeah.
Reminds me of our stories from the tales in the movie theater of the regular that would come every week, and we'd, you know, give them free movie passes and stuff. And
yeah, it's super cool. And like, and it's such a, again, it's like
they bring a cake on Christmas.
A lot of times it becomes like a mutually happy thing. And it's, again, not even huge things necessarily. And this one, it kind of snowballed into bigger and bigger, like, acts of kindness and really cool interactions that happened. But just by going above and beyond in the ways that you can in your job, whether that be going the extra mile to be extra friendly that day to somebody when you're serving them, or if you're a customer, you can go above and beyond and, you know, be extra patient if things are being like long or rough, or being extra kind to them, to the server or to the worker. We've talked about this a lot on this podcast, so I won't go too much into it more, but there's just a lot of things that we can do in our day-to-day that goes a little bit above and beyond what the expectation is of that society role of being a customer or being a worker, and going that extra little bit, not even just for the job or to like get kudos or anything like that, but just for yourself, because sometimes it can feel really good when you go above and beyond for somebody in that way.
Just remember that before we're workers or we are customers, we are humans.
We are humans. Humans before job. It's also great, like I said, if you do notice it, you do recognize it, let them know. I remember at Olive Garden, it was crazy how much the managers were obsessive over the surveys. Like, crazy obsessed.
Fun fact, if you fill out a survey at Olive Garden, or probably other restaurants too, but for sure Olive Garden, if you anything less than 5 out of 5 is technically a 0 or a 1. Like it might as well be a 1.
Which is crazy. Yeah, it was crazy. I might have, did I already talk about this on the podcast?
I don't know if you have. Yeah,
like it's actually crazy. And so this might be an eye-opener for people that do fill out surveys at restaurants, because it certainly was for me when I was working there, and it changed. I was like, whoa. So yeah, when I was working at Olive Garden for the first time, I got my surveys and I was like, what the heck? I got 0 as my overall score of the week. And I was like, what? All the comments were like, I had a great server. And I was like, why did I get a 0 then? That makes 0 sense. And then at the end of the month, you get a breakdown of each individual survey. And I found out that I gotten all 4s, and from another server and from the manager confirmed it, that if you get anything less than a 5, it's a 0. And I was like, what? That makes 0 sense.
And they didn't tell you that either.
No. So I was just perplexed. And so now that changed me when I went to restaurants and stuff. I'm like, okay, well, if I had a nice server, like I'm going to fill out that survey and I'm giving them all 5s, so that to help them in case, because most people don't know that, in case they get 4s, it'll still skew the rating to be good then at the end of the week. Because otherwise, if it's going down to 0 just from people giving them 4s, I don't want them to feel like, oh, I did a terrible job this week, even if they did great. Because a lot of people don't give out 5 out of 5s unless it was like incredible service.
Listen, if you're somebody who mainly only gives 4 out of 5s, because 5 is like perfection, I get you. I hear you. We're not perfect. 4 is more than likely the one that's deserving. The game is rigged.
The game is
The game is rigged, okay? If you're leaving a review and you thought they were good, give them a 5 or don't leave a review. If you have notes, maybe leave a comment or something with it, but like give them the 5 or don't leave a review because the game is rigged against the workers to make them feel horrible or to make them just think they're terrible people and or just leave them confused and give management a weapon to say, hey, you should be better because you would only got this. Anyway, that's my off the soapbox. Like, that was hard to like watch you go through that for a while.
I was like, what is going on?
Of like you thinking that you thought you had 0 on like, what was it, friendliness or hospitality or what? All of it. Yeah,
it was across the board 0s, and I was like, what?
And knowing
in my first like month there, I was like, oh my gosh, I'm terrible at this.
Yeah,
well, I thought things were going well. I was like getting nice comments, so I was reading all the comments.
And
I'm like, what the heck?
Fact they didn't bother to tell you that's how that worked. Like, it's designed to make you feel like crap or feel like you're not doing good enough, and that's not okay.
No.
Anyways, that's my rant about that.
So yeah, if you want to go above and beyond and make a server's day, a lot of times they get to see those surveys, and if they were a nice server, it can really mean a lot. Something that I definitely didn't know until then. So yeah, a little thing like that. Little things we can do in our day-to-day. All right, on to our news article for today. Today's news article comes from cbsnews.com, and it is titled, it's a long title. Here we go. After Hurricane Helene, a North Carolina woman uses the power of social media to reunite families with old photographs lost in the storm. All right, so the story is about a woman named Taylor Schenker who lives in Canton, North Carolina. She lives in that city is near hard-hit Asheville. Asheville was hit really hard by Hurricane Helene, and in fact, she didn't live too far from there. Her friend's entire house was destroyed by the flooding that happened from Hurricane Helene. Thankfully, her house was not destroyed. Taylor's wasn't, but still. Her and her friend went for a walk to check out the house that had been destroyed and to try to recover some of her belongings. And they spent about 4 hours digging through the mud trying to find anything of hers. In that process of digging, they found about 4 or 5 individual photographs from different people that had washed up in this storm, including some clothes and an American flag. And so basically she set them out and in case people would come walking by and find them. Then as she went inside for the night, she was like, oh, well, I don't want them to get destroyed if it rains again tonight. Like, because they're photographs. The fact that they even survived at all from this storm is pretty crazy. I don't want them to get destroyed. So how can I make sure that people find them and know that if they're looking for them because they were missing? She started a Instagram account called Photos from Helene and started organizing these photos that she found in her house by like looking like if it was similar photos of the same person or look like they could be related and stuff like that. She would organize them and then post them out there as like a virtual lost and found to help people find these photos. Wow. Hoping that people could spread the word by word of mouth that this page existed and help reunite them with their rightful owners. She did this, including cleaning off a lot of them as well, these photos and stuff, because they were, I'm sure, very muddy and stuff from everything. Oh, yeah. According to the article, this is what quote the article. It says, Schenker said she found about 100 photos herself, but picked up about another 100 from other people who found them, including search and rescue teams. So search and rescue teams also started putting photos into this virtual lost and found as well. At the time of our interview in late October, she said that she had returned about 15% of the photos she has collected. She still adds new photos to Instagram daily. This is kind of a crazy one. Another quoting the article here. It's a very long article. There's a lot of interesting info in here. So if you want to check out the article, as always, it's linked below. But here's another one kind of crazy story. It says here, we have now found 5 photos of this one family of these 2 sons. And when I met with the mom to reunite the photos, she shared that one of her sons had actually passed away, Schenker said. And so when they lost their home, they lost all memory of this child, which is absolutely devastating in addition to the devastation that has already happened. So had she not started this thing, it's very likely they might not have found these photos for this family and they would have had no photos, no record of anything of their son. Isn't that crazy?
Dang.
But because she went above and beyond and took her own time and resources to find these photos, dig for them, wipe them off, clean them off, put them in a safe place, and then put them out there for people to find, they got their photos back and they have photos of their son now to remember him by. Isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
I was like, wow. But again,
it's coming out of a horribly tragic situation, but
yeah.
Dang.
Yeah.
That's definitely a situation like that where people like step up and come to the woodwork and there's so many stories of people stepping up, organizations helping out, and it's still crazy to see how they're still cleaning up, and probably will be for
a long time,
considerable amount of time.
Yeah. So it's just amazing that she's doing that with her own time and resources, because I'm sure that's very time consuming.
And not exactly like a fun process, it doesn't sound like.
No, having to dig through mud and debris and stuff. I mean, also kind of dangerous,
mud,
I'm
there's
sure,
other
too.
stuff in there too, probably.
Right, exactly. So the fact that she's doing that, but I never even thought about that being a possibility of like, what if it was like, that was the only record someone has of somebody that passed away, like that's such a huge thing to be able to give that back to them. And there's a lot of other examples in there too of cool things that she found that turned out to be really meant a lot to the person that she found it for. So I highly recommend reading the article. And by just reading the article too, you're supporting stories like this, positive stories that come out of crazy bad things that happen, like Hurricane Helene and stuff. But there's lots of hopeful stories out there too, in the midst of all these tragic stories that are out there too. So support those articles, because someone went out of their way to write this really awesome interview with this woman. So it's really, really cool. Yeah. So thanks so much for joining us for today's episode. We hope that you'll tune in next Wednesday. Next Wednesday's episode, it's all about making meaningful connections. So got some cool stories lined up for that. If you have positive stories that you would like to share with us, we would love to hear them. Please send them to us at upliftingpositivestories@gmail.com, or you can post them on our subreddit, which is Uplift Positive Stories, and we will see them on there as well. And
if you're watching YouTube, make sure you hit that like and subscribe button, and please share it around.
Yeah, that'd be awesome. We appreciate all of your support, and we hope you have a wonderful rest of your week.
And stay positive.